Can we maybe look into portfolios of other people?
Sure.
Why would you consider that a badass?
8-year-old Horia goes, fuck yeah!
These are the things that I need to consider when I'm doing a portfolio piece.
There's a lot to be explained here.
It doesn't make you a bad or a good artist. It's just different purpose.
He's somebody who can do everything.
Wow. Can we maybe look into portfolios of other people and I don't know, you can tell me well, you can see here and here because of this and this and this. You can see that the person put thoughts or extra research or anything like that, because how would I know that they did that?
Sure. This is Kekai Kotaki, an awesome artist that I work with. And now the thing with Kekai is this is a consistent dude. You know exactly what you're getting, and you know that they're going to hit it every freaking time, because this monster is done to a level of obviously, it's well done. I think commercially it's it totally fits the fantasy genre. He definitely has a point of view. And guess what? This monster has a point of view. It's well done. It's commercial, all that stuff. Guess what? So is this guy. Guess what? So is this concept. You know what I mean? I mean, it just shows that they are going to, every time they're up to bat, they're going to knock it out of the park. And that is huge. And so knowing Kekai, he loves this kind of dark fantasy stuff. When you see his fantasy, his sci-fi stuff, there's this kind of visual poetry to it. And I think that the portfolio shows that. And you don't hire Kekai if you don't want Kekai type stuff. If you don't want something that screams badass like this, you don't hire them. You don't hire him to do cute icons for a Hello Kitty game, right?
Why would you consider that a badass? What are the elements? Yeah, what are the elements that make this art? If we dissect that, what are the elements that make this art piece for you and as an art director badass?
That the 8-year-old Horia goes, fuck yeah! Are you kidding me? A knight is using a magic mace to throw ghost hammers and fucking wolfmen with axes. Are you kidding me? Just that sentence makes me stoked. You know what I mean? And the fact that it's done in this painterly fantasy style, there's no bunk perspective or if there is, I don't even see it because I'm so freaking jazzed about it. And this is exactly what these pieces were intended to do when we were working on Guild Wars 2. Designers would kind of give out, hey, here's what the Paladin does, and or Guardian, sorry.
But if I get it, there's an 8-year-old Horia that is a consumer, right? But there's also a Horia that is art director. If I was an artist,
they're the same person.
Okay. So what are the elements that I, as an artist, if I look at this and I dissect it in a certain things, would allow me to be okay, these are the things that I need to consider when I'm doing a portfolio piece?
Okay. Fair enough. There's clear communication of an emotion coming through.
Okay.
And so it's not just, he's got drawings of the people standing in armor. And then we've had, we would hire interns to do the really clean version where you see every piece of chainmails for the modelers to work off of. But this tells us about the spirit and the badassness of this character. I mean, the pose is there. That helps the animators kind of know about the heroic, triumphant spirit as opposed to a creepy necromancer or something like that. There's even though these bad guys aren't necessarily things from the game, it's kind of that good versus evil vibe. And again, that speaks to what the story guys intended. And so these images actually end up inspiring story. They inspire animation. They inspire lighting. They inspire effects. And even the game designers wouldn't it be damn cool if there was? They didn't ask for ghost chains. They just said, hey, I use magic. Fuck yeah, it should be swords. And the punchline is that yes, it's really well drawn. He obviously stuck to a dictated list of things that they need. It has to look like it's definitely a good guy. You don't think of him as a bad guy, but it's a badass guy. He's not a goody two shoes. He's a badass, has this kind of armor. It's different than the Guild Wars warrior, than the Guild Wars necromancer, etc. So it's clear that all these things were followed. It fits in a fantasy world. You get it. And, it makes me do sound effects. And that's huge because at the end of the day, we want players to feel that excitement and that passion and that energy. And so sticking this guy like this, okay, that is absolutely a portfolio piece you could do. And you know what? If you're starting out, take some of Kekai's drawings, post them, and draw the front, side, and back in line, clean, beautiful line art, and write his name, Kekai. Here's my intern version of what I would do for the modelers. There's a portfolio for somebody, because gosh, we had 2, 3, 4 people. Kekai draws one of these in a day. And then somebody spends another 2, 3 days doing the front, side, back. What does the sword look like? What does this chain look like? Does it have tiny spikes on it? What does this hammer look like? I mean, like, there's a lot to be explained here. You know, it's not a perfect production concept, but it's a hugely inspirational piece that gives energy and information to the whole entire team. It's phenomenal. Granted, Kekai is a top tier concept artist that gets to do this kind of mood and piece thing because this kind of mood and feel piece because he's freaking good at it. But he's not posting that stuff because it's not fun. He's done plenty of I mean, look, he's done this kind of stuff for modeling, and he's done dirt textures, but he's not going to post that stuff because he's not trying to get that job. So if I go to his personal work, it's more of the stuff that he loves to do, which is badass mood pieces, you know, and things that are going to get people like, look at this. There's a whole story. You could build a game around this image. I freaking love it. What happened here? With this ancient world? It's all overgrown. Are they travelers? Are they friends? It's like, Jesus Christ, there's so much. Any creative person can stare at this thing for days and just kind of extrapolate an entire world out of it. Like, that is freaking brilliant. And hey, if you're starting out, what might 12 different lanterns be that fit in this environment? Take it, put his name on it and say, inspired by this, here's what a bridge might look like. Here's what a walkway would look like. Here's what one of these statues might look like. Like, that's not going to be your first job. He earned this role, you know. So the intern version of this is, what do these roots look like? What do these stones look like? What are different versions of these trees and monuments look like? So absolutely, you can learn from this, but don't expect this to be your first job out the gate.
I wonder what was his first assignments or projects or concepts.
Dirt. He was making dirt textures, and at home he would go home and draw a badass warrior with 3 arms. I think he had 3, 4, 5 drawings that my pops at the time, we were all working together, saw and said, "Hey, these are fucking awesome. Hey, you should be doing some stuff working." So slowly gave him, that ring that we talked about of influence in our other chat. Hey, you show up on time. You do a great job on these dirt textures, and at home you're practicing these monsters, and you're awesome at them. Like, you know what? Let's give you 1 or 2 monsters. Oh my God, you nailed them out of the park. Here, take 10 monsters. Okay, you're now the monster guy. I mean, like, it was just this gradual. Yeah, I mean, that is work, that go life drawing every week and go practice, after working 8 to 10 hours a day, go home and draw some more. I mean, there's dedication there that speaks to it. And so it was well earned, Okay, so this is Levi. Levi is another freak of nature from ArenaNet. And Levi actually started in 3D. So Kekai was doing little textures, and Levi was doing 3D modeling. And now he's taken that and learned. I mean, this was over the years, all sorts of new tools and rendering engines and particles and all that stuff. And so he's like full on building these gorgeous. They look like stills from a film, but it's all stuff. That's
exactly my feeling of that.
So you're seeing, like, this is a pretty artsy fartsy, kooky kind of creative. Almost Tim Burton-y, like they're these creepy robots that walk and they're carrying things. I mean, it's very poetic. This is truly artsy, but he's using his 3D, I want to call it superpower, but really it's just, he's trained his butt off and worked so much to learn new tools that let him express himself, that no matter how creatively divergent an idea is, we could see it like it's right before our eyes. So we don't have to extrapolate like from a sketch. No, that would look weird. We go, oh my God, this is what it would look like in the game. Holy shit. Well, that is really cool. And it does hold up, and it does feel realistic. I could imagine these rusty metal robot beings.
Yeah, I love that. I love the proportions between those creatures and the human. Like if those creatures were just walking, that would be one thing. But when you put it in a proportion to a human, it's like, wow.
Yeah. And so that's Levi's whole thing is, I think, using tools and technology and mastering texture software, render software, 3D stuff, sculpting, to be able to tell these things there's a feeling here. I know what the sea mist smells like. I know the quiet and the stillness and the awe of looking at these monuments. I mean, it feels like I walked into this place, and if it was a napkin sketch, I'd be like, I don't know, it looks like a T, like the letter T. But if I see it, oh no, my God, it's carved out of driftwood. Like, I know what this smells like. I know what the textures of these are. If I run my hands across it, I know the sound of wet, clap, clap, clapping through the wet beach and the mud. Mm-hmm. I'm there, and I can, as an art director, say, oh my God, we need to get this across to the player. This just feels fucking amazing. The sound guys know what to do. The lighting people know what to do. The texture artists know what to do. And, okay, maybe somebody, I don't know if you need to do with these pieces, but okay, we got to really decide what that texture is, because it's just kind of wood. Fine. The texture artists take it and run with it. And anything that's a little underdeveloped doesn't really matter here, because the in the grand scheme, it just feels real, and all those little nuts and bolts can be sorted out by the modelers. So, I mean, just phenomenal work, and really kind of a combination of like, these are giant crab mechs and little people exploring their shells. I forgot what I was going to say, except that they're these kind of extremely artsy and poetic ideas and themes, but they are executed in a photorealistic manner. So there is no questioning. This is what it would look like. Holy smokes. And you can really judge it for the idea, and someone's not throwing out the idea because of execution, that they can't visualize it. Like, this is CEO proof. A CEO with no art training can look at this and go, hey, I like it or I don't like it, but they're not going to do it because it was poorly drawn or poorly stylized. Again, I mean, somebody at the absolute top of their craft. Next year we have Carlyn Lim. If you meet her, she's this sort of petite gal, kind of quiet, and just does these badass, fucking awesome. They're elegant, they're ornate, they're beautiful, but all her work again has this really strong identity to it. You're not going to hire her to do make a sci-fi gun. That's not, you know what I mean? You're going to, if it's a haunted gun, you might hire her for that. But I mean, like, all these creatures and monsters are just so beefy and mean and ballsy. And she's somebody who I think is a great example of, like, if you look at these things and you think, oh, Kekai looks like he draws the stuff he does. He's always wearing black, and he has a hat, and he's got a cigarette, and he's just kind of like a surly dude. And she's like this smiley, petite person, and then she's cranking out these insane, gruesome monsters.
And well, so as art director, for example, again, if we go into like dissecting her work, like, what makes her monsters so special for you as an art director? Like, you're looking at it and like, wow, this is 5 out of 5. What are the elements?
They're fucking cool and they're unexpected. I've not seen that, but holy smokes. I mean, I would have not thought to have like a pillar and that's what it's, but Look, I get it. This is dangerous. I get that it's cool. I can tell my friend about it. Have you gotten to the giant scorpion monster? No, that sounds awesome. And when you see it, it's not like all the other scorpions you've seen in games. It's not the run of the mill kind of, it's made out of mech parts or whatever. It fits in a fantasy game, but it's not a boring dragon. So in a weird way, she's got this very creative, strange, out there poetic lens. And yet she's making these things, even though they're not photorealistically drawn like Levi stuff. There's enough obvious care about the references for architecture, anatomy, whatever you want to call it, to where, like, what this is kind of like a mummy cat. You know what that dead stretched skin looks like, and you're seeing its spine through there and everything. So there's just enough references that she's tacking on there. So it's making something completely dreamlike, and she's bringing it to be a palpable, believable thing. Like, that's a fucking superpower. And her lens is just I don't see anybody else who draws this kind of stuff. I mean, there's people that are kind of in the ballpark, but I mean, she's got this consistency that it's fresh and it's cool. And that is not something that you so much of stuff on ArtStation looks like it's derived from other stuff on ArtStation. It's just people kind of being in this echo chamber and redrawing the same thing over and over. I've not seen this kind of motif. I don't even know what to call it. It's like I could see influences of like of Asian architecture and Mayan architecture, but they're dwarves, which is kind of this Nordic thing. I mean, like, what the hell? Look at this thing. It's gory, it's creepy, but it's still a little toy-like and whimsical. I mean, it's just a point of view that no one else has, and the fact that she can consistently hit it and make it, accessible is a superpower.
Well, I was just trying to dissect those superpowers for people who can reference that for their work, and I know that like Horia has his own upbringing and subjective ways of looking at the world. Like, and I just need those pieces. There could be like a checklist of things that if you hit that, or if you try to hit that, then you can achieve this and that.
I think something that we talked about with that example of if you're going to make the handrails and you're going to make the door and you're going to make, so there's a cohesion in this image and it has an instant vibe. There's this somber quiet to it. There's this eerie sort of poetry to it. Like, oh my God, these are adjectives. If you don't have those kind of adjectives for a barrel or a rock or a boot, you're not doing the job. Because we could buy boot models off of boots.com. We can scan a jacket, but it's like, are you able to take something and make it feel like it's the bowl was loved and passed down from family to family. The doorknob has been used for, centuries. The can I smell a room when I walk into it after you model it? You know what I mean? And so that's what you can take away from this. So she's done a lot of that work because it's all whimsical fantasy stuff, but everything talks to itself. Everything's part of the same sort of visual language. And you can extrapolate from this. If you're a concept artist, maybe you write her name on this and say, here's the room that these guys might be hanging out in. Again, you're not going to be that visionary, but you're going to be somebody who's inspired by it and can extrapolate. That's a good gig. Or try to model this stuff. I think a kick-ass modeler could take this and take it to the next level where like these shoulder pads are made out of real metal that's shiny, where it's not rusty, and that stone feels rough and all, the hair. I mean, like, then I'm really seeing it for real. There's no amount of imagination. It's not this like comic book style drawing anymore. It's this like, oh my God, I'm looking at this troll dwarf guy. Holy shit. So, I mean, there's stuff that people can use her stuff for inspiration and give credit, or you can look at what she's doing, which is the tenets of imbuing your work with lots of storytelling, putting your own touch and originality on it, and not doing the same thing that a Google search could get you. You cannot Google search and get this stuff. I might Google search and I might find this texture on a piece of armor. I might Google search, I might get a stone face on whatever. But the way she's put this bouquet together is brilliant. And so it's like, are you able to go find cool references and bring them together? And whether you're making a medieval hut or a barrel, that's the level of storytelling that you need to bring to your craft.
Got it.
And this is my buddy, John Powell. He's at SuckerPunch. He's the lead there. And he is somebody who's really, really able to kind of work on every different kind of thing. This is an interior for a tent. And you might think, interior of the tent, that's not exciting. I want to do the boss guy, or I want to do the big palace. But it's like, holy smokes, this is one where I smell it. I know what that kind of wet hide would smell like, I know it's the muffled sounds coming from outside would be, all this stuff, the metals and it just feeds the imagination of the whole art team. And so everything put together, it gives across this emotion. And yet when you look at the little details, they're actually pretty loosely drawn and sketched. So this isn't necessarily a production piece, for somebody to model one-to-one. It's leaving it open for whether it's like, hey, historic reference, go look that up, or we're going to have some. John also does draw these very intricate line art for all his props. Those are beautiful. He doesn't post them because I don't think they're the funnest thing for him to do, but they're quite gorgeous. I would hang them up on the wall. But I think you can either, again, look at this stuff and sort of be inspired by it and model from it and try to recreate this in 3D, or just thinking about that thing of what am I selling? She's selling this. She's not going to work on Call of Duty. Call of Duty is not going to give her a call, but she's going to get called by Blizzard and by all these awesome fantasy places that want to do a new, fresh take on fantasy. So her dance card is full. Levi's getting calls from all sorts of movie companies, sci-fi games, and all that stuff. You know what you're getting with Kekai. I imagine he's done dozens of magic cards and stuff like that. Working on Guild Wars again. But thinking about, hey, what is it? What am I selling myself as? And I think John is sort of the Swiss Army knife. All of his stuff is at a high quality, whether it's kind of cinematic keyframe artwork, telling a story for the mood of a hey, when they escape,
wow,
the whole cinematic might be like that, or whether it's hey, these 2D cutscenes that are inspired by traditional Japanese art, and then they turn them into animated, illustrated cutscenes, just gorgeous. Or here's a prop for a boat. I mean, he's gone through in 3D and made it bulletproof. You can't mess that up. Look at this detailed trebuchet or whatever it's called. I mean, like, it's immaculate. You can't mess with it. So, I mean, here's characters. Look at all the layering she's got and these kind of feathers and yada yada. I mean, he's somebody who can do everything. That's what he's like. Hey, I'm the Swiss Army knife person. So think about, what am I, the boot person? Then I better have every kind of boot. And each boot is worn out and polished, and he's shown in all the different variations. But really thinking about what the collection of work says about you and who is going to hire you. This is a Swiss Army knife at 343. His name is David Heidhoff. And I mean, again, just a beast. Can do characters, can do environments, can do all this military hard surface gear, all the way down to like actually designing it out in 3D, where like this could be a working, robot arm, and even the unglamorous stuff of all the different variations, or just the details on the hand. Like, you will see an idea from kind of a loose sketch all the way zeroed into the freaking thumb pads on the gloves. So
love that.
Then here's a cool, huge environment, where a whole level could be built around this. Here's a multiplayer level. I mean, there's just so much sort of tone, lighting, and motion in this. And yet when you zoom in, it's rough. But if you need it, he can do the close-up detailed thing. So again, this person is just invaluable to the team, because you can put them on a vehicle, on a character, on a big thing, little thing. I mean, they're just phenomenal. Naomi is really character focused. You're not going to give her the trebuchet. You're not going to give her the ship, but holy smokes, she straddles this line between the concept artist and the illustrator, because each one of her pieces is so thoroughly painted and so beautifully detailed. I mean, it just looks like, a lot of the stuff ends up in load screens or in marketing art, because it's so not just rendered well, but rendered beautifully. And it looks like handcrafted and loved and truly artistic. And so you get to see the soul of the game and the soul of the artist and people working behind it when you look at this stuff. It doesn't feel like the same, CG render of a army man or whatever that you've seen 100 times. So it imbues the not only does it speak to the people making the models about the mood of the characters or the spirit of the characters, but it also tells the people outside, who are looking at the game for the first time and seeing some of this art. It I think speaks to the handcrafted and care and the beauty that this game or whatever game she's working on is. And so I think it's really rare to find somebody that can do both the illustrative and the conceptual so beautifully in one fell swoop. I mean, again, just masterful.
Is it important to say that you don't necessarily have to do rendered versions of a concept all the time, right? It depends really on what stage of production you are and what's the purpose of those concepts and stuff like that, right? So if Naomi is doing the final renders, right, for the modeling team, you don't necessarily need that, right? It doesn't make you a bad or a good artist. It's just different purpose.
Absolutely, yeah. So I've shown you only one type of artist, which is the top tier concept artist. And out of their work, they're showing things. Hey, I want to get more of this kind of job because I love doing painterly, finished looking stuff. But I guarantee you, there are in her portfolio, not in her portfolio, sorry, but in her folders at work, here's a samurai shoe with 15% mud on it, 30% mud on it, how it should look when it's fully muddy. Here's how a sword should look like this. Here's how a sword should be when it's bloody. And here's how the streaks of blood should look after he's wiped it with his. I mean, there are just these constant back and forth with the modelers that you do with paint overs. There are pencil sketches. There are diagrams. There are reference and mood boards. It's not the fun or sexy stuff. You know, this is her, again, she's showing off the stuff that she's both good at and wants to do. And that's how you get more of those type of jobs. But I mean, she is capable of, she'll detail the hell out of a sword handle. And you know, for a modeler, she'll describe exactly what this little inlay does or what this, you know, fancy necklace might look like so that there's no questions about it. Or she'll sit next to the modeler as they're working and go, hey, take a stab at it, something like that. Oh, I like what you did here. Here's a quick paint over. So what would a entry-level person or even maybe somebody who's doing stuff in the games industry and just wants to go to the next level or a slightly different job, and how can they think about their portfolio and what info can they take regardless of what that discipline is, whether it's animation or lighting or whatever. And speaking as somebody who has to do, you know, the kind of the judging of that and hiring for that, I would say, just to recap, I think number one, there has to be a high level of quality. I think it's important that things look professional and finished. I think you need to have a good number of stuff. You can't just have one really amazing model or whatever. You know, you've got to show that you can consistently do it and stick to it. I think it's got to be stuff that's, you know, looks like you've worked at least somewhat related to the theme that the game that we're working on. It's tough to sell somebody who has a bunch of fantasy work and say, oh yeah, hire him to do robots or whatever. It's just, it doesn't work like that. So it behooves you to kind of make your portfolio as varied as it could be, but while you're staying very much with the things that you are able to deliver on and get paid for. But essentially, you want to make sure that you're showing enough things that you're good at. And so that might be brick textures and ground textures and dirt and stuff that, you know, is in line with more entry-level gig. And then you've got a few things that show, hey, I can also do a car. Example of a good exercise that I give to folks who ask for critique or help online is I say, hey, why don't you model a World War II vehicle? They had all sorts of Jeeps and things like that had a lot more charm than, you know, modern boxy cars. And I think they also had more curves, so they're a little more challenging to model. Because it's World War II, you expect to have some character on there. So how are you going to beat up and distress this vehicle? Are you going to texture it? Is there going to be mud and rust all over it? How are you going to deck it out? Put like shovel and a first aid kit and gas cans. And, you know, how can you give this truck that should be pretty sterile? I mean, it's a machine, and give it a lot of character to where it's like, it could have a name. It's Uncle GP, you know, it's stupid, but that's a way that I think I used to kind of get people to kind of, think about it. And you know, you can almost think what a old car might sound like. And you know, things looking good and professional, having enough of them, having them be close enough to the topic of the game you're applying for, and then putting your own touch on there and putting love and character and, you know, an environment is a character. You know, it should invoke a certain type of emotion. It's just, at the end of the day, it's really think about what you're doing it, why you're doing it, and how it would play with the rest of the scene. If I was doing this in the game, how would it interact with the environment? What emotions it's giving out? And I think that thought is that thought process and that attention to not just detail, but like emotion is the difference between, you know, amateurs and professionals. And that doesn't mean you have to invent everything. Open up Google and just search for, you know, old creaky Jeep, old rusty Jeep, World War II Jeep, new Jeep, old Jeep, you know, like just finding all the cool little bits that you can bring together like a flower arranger. They're not inventing flowers. They're just bringing them together in a pleasing way. And there's emotions that you get from different bouquets. There's celebratory ones. There's romantic love bouquets. There's a bouquet that you bring to a funeral. There's graceful arrangements, and there's wild and sort of leafy and fun kind of, hippie arrangements. I mean, there's just all sorts of emotions from flower arranging, and that's just selecting the right flowers and placing them in a pleasing way together to get that emotion across. That's all you got to do with reference, whether you're a concept artist, whether you're lighting, whatever it is. Looking at references, look at movies, look at real life. At the end of the day, we're puppeteers, we're storytellers, So whether you're doing a crate or a sidewalk or the main character, you're trying to get people to believe in this world. They're looking at it on a flat monitor, on a screen, and you're trying to believe, no, this is a real world. It's been here for hundreds of thousands of years. You can smell what this wet sidewalk. You can smell the wet moss on it and whatever. Like those are the kind of thought process you need to have. No matter, there's no such thing as a small assignment. And the worst, most heartbreaking thing I see is not when somebody just has a tin can and a bread box in the portfolio. That's a fucking legit portfolio. We need bread boxes. We need tin cans. What I hate is when that's a cylinder and this is a box, and you didn't show off your modeling. You didn't go ahead and actually model the freaking hinge on the back of the box and put a dent in it and whatever. Maybe you're not the best artist, but you've tried. You've looked into whatever it is you're studying, and you've tried to get the best and most expressive thing out of it. And so, again, no matter what discipline, I think that attention to detail and care and effort and the want to tell a story is what's most important.
On that note, thank you so much, Horia, for coming tonight and telling me stories and showing me little nitty-gritty details of what makes a beautiful and amazing and a hireable portfolio, and also showing me the steps of what a new artist or a middle artist that can take to up their portfolio. I think this will be a really good inspiration and a map for a lot of artists in the industry. And thank you so much, and hope we can do that again.
Absolutely, yeah. I hope it's helpful, and I encourage anybody to, who listens to this talk about useful, find another perspective. That's just my take, but I'm sure you're going to see some differences here and there. But more importantly, you're going to see what the commonalities are, and those are the things you want to glom onto. That everybody's is kind of saying the same thing. You go, all right, my wheels are turning. So if not everything I've said makes sense, please, there's smarter people out there, but I assure you, my intentions are really to help as many people as possible. So thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, Horia. Bye.